let me see if I
you
can,
know,
let me see if I could, you want me to bring down a little, I don't know. It just seems I have a light in the background as well. I don't know why I'm always so light by my desk. It's really weird. Let me just move this real quick. Is that okay? Or do you want me to stay if it's okay?
you can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Hey everybody! So we are live, and our guest Caulen is adjusting his lighting so that he's beautiful now.
Is that a little better, or is it the same thing? It's the same thing, right? It's all right. Don't worry about it.
It's okay. We're gonna get you a ring light, Caulen.
I have one. I think it's because the sun is so bright behind me that it messes up my camera.
Yes, it's okay. It's all right. It's beautiful. We're not going to worry about it.
All right.
So you all are in for a treat today. We are talking with my friend Caulen Foster about Shopify. And Caulen helps brands. He actually grows brands on Shopify. So for any of you guys who are wondering, like, should I go on Shopify? What should I do with Shopify? What makes a good brand for Shopify? All these Shopify things, then we're gonna just get into it today. And I'm so excited to talk with Caulen, because him and I, every time we get on a call, we just, it's just for days. So it's exciting. We're gonna talk about what it is to be a brand and what it means to grow your brand off of Amazon. And so I hope you guys will join us. The link is sellerroundtable.com/live/live. Join us here in the Zoom, and that way you can ask questions and chat. And I won't be the only one messing with Caulen today. You got to help me.
Awesome.
No. So I'm going to hit the record button, and we're going to get started with this episode of the Seller Roundtable. Here I go.
Awesome.
Brace yourself for the Zoom announcement, everyone. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Amy Weiss. Andy Arnott is out today, but we are recording episode 110 of the Seller Roundtable, and I am here with my friend Caulen Foster from BrainPower. Hey, Caulen, what's up?
How are you? Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, we always start our episodes just getting to know you a little bit better. So Tell everybody as much or as little as you want to tell. If you want to provide a blood sample, that's okay. But,
I have my ancestry.com entire family tree here for you.
Exactly. So just tell us where you're from and a little bit more about you and your background. And
Yeah, sure. No problem. So I'm from Miami, which is probably why you see so much sun in the background of my video here, of my Zoom. So I got started in e-commerce about 7 years ago. I had my own product, still have my own brand. It's named Almond Pro, and big on Shopify. We started actually with ClickFunnels, and I kind of navigated my way through the e-commerce journey, so to speak. And I had a mentor lead me along the way, and just taught me kind of the ins and outs of the industry. Got me thankfully involved in copywriting very early on, and really emphasized the importance of being able to write copy. So that was kind of where my trajectory went when it came to like where I was putting my energy and learning the most, outside of just like pure digital infrastructure, right? Like what else can I use here? And copy is where that fell. And over the years, I've used that across, different performance projects. I've worked with influencers, selling online education, lots of D2C stuff. That's my favorite thing to sell, is direct to consumer, obviously. Especially in the CPG space. I love things that are just packaged. It can be sold, quality products, right? Which is kind of the premise of all the products that we work with. We do have some clients that do online education, but CPG is our jam. So, I've been with BrainPower now. I'm the president, and I'm also in charge of product and client selection, because we're very selective about the products that we pick, because one thing we'll probably talk about today is how not all products that are on Amazon work on Shopify. So we have to be selective. Yeah, like I said, selective on how we choose our products and who we work with. But I think that's the best I got right off the top of my head. How was that?
I love it. So I now see why you and I get along so well, because I also love sales and copywriting. I think that everything that you do in the sales side is about how you communicate with the customer and how you make them feel. along
Yes.
the journey. And, when you can gain that trust, it really makes a difference. Customers buy from brands that they know, like, and trust. And copy is where that's at. So I love that. I love that you have a background in sales. Mark Cuban once said that if he lost his billions, people said, if you lost everything, do you think you could get it back? And he said, if I lost my billions, I don't know if I'd be able to get it all back, but I would get a job in sales and I'd at least be able to make $1 million back.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Not a bad number.
So do you think that, this is a random question, not related to Shopify, but do you think that anyone can learn how to be a good copywriter? Or do you think it really takes a certain je ne sais quoi?
I could, that's a great question. I think you can. I think you can, especially if you are passionate about your product, because chances are, if you're passionate about the product that you sell, you're probably very in tune with the benefits and the features of your product. And if you can learn to differentiate between the two, I think the outside the box thinking kind of comes with time. Even me, like I'm definitely a little bit more right side of the brain, a little bit more creative and stuff, but it still took me a while to, I guess, I hate to say like think like a copywriter, but when I talk to people, I actually hear copy sometimes. It's pretty weird, like somebody will say something to me and I'll be like, oh, that's a good headline right there. I'm writing that on my phone. Like that's definitely a good attention grabber. So I think over time, it's something you just kind of get a knack for. But yeah, there's definitely some of the greats, but there's some amazing books out there that can definitely help big time.
Yes, love that. Well, let's get into it. You grow brands on Shopify, and you and I were talking about brands and what makes a good brand for Shopify. Can you talk a little bit about the best products to grow on Shopify?
Oh yeah, totally. So I always say that when you're selling on Shopify, right, you're not really just competing or just trying to get. You're not just competing with your competitors, right? You're competing with distractions. So the number one thing you're really looking for in your product and your marketing is capturing attention, right? Like you need to captivate attention. You have to have a product and a marketing campaign and a marketing strategy that is strong enough to retain that attention and then get engagement. Because like I said, it's not just your competitors sending out ads, it's also your text messages going off, your phone ringing, so there's a lot of variables that you have to take into consideration when you're selling on these mobile predominantly platforms, right? Because you're doing most of the traffic on your mobile these days. So the best products are those that, number one, capture attention. They have to be very unique. We like to say they present a new opportunity to the market. A great example of an opportunity would be like Uber and taxis, right? So, back in the days, I know that taxis were extremely unreliable. They cost a lot of money. It was not something that you could use on the daily basis. And then here comes Uber with this amazing new opportunity to just have a car right at your doorstep within 7 minutes, right? So we look for something that presents a really strong new opportunity to the marketplace, usually a very strong, unique selling proposition. Another thing that we look for is desire, right? Like, do people want this? Is something that exists within people at a primal level? So, in a lot of instances when we want to buy something, it's not that somebody created that desire in us, it's that they tapped into it. Because desire it's like energy. You can't really create it or destroy it. It just exists, so you can only tap into it. So we look at, does this product tap into desire, right? Into a primal desire, something like traveling or eating.
I think it's also, like Donald Miller puts it as survival, right?
Yes.
The way to tell a really good story is how all of us humans have a desire to survive, like something that's going to help us survive or thrive in some way. So I think that, that taps into that survival mechanism. If you don't have this in your life, what is it going to be like, right? And it just taps into that desire side point. So I love that you put it from the desire side of things, because I've heard it from the survivalist kind of point of things, but love the desire side.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I've never seen vice versa. I've never heard it the way you put it. And that at a primal level, it really does. Our surroundings have changed, right, as human beings, but our instincts really haven't. As much as we think they have, they really haven't. So we like to tap into obviously that desire. And then we look for two last things, which is an experience or a mechanism, like what changes in the process and when it comes to the problem that you're solving, the opportunity that you're presenting to the marketplace. Think of like, we'll go back to since we're talking about primal, stuff real quick, we could say, when people are hungry, they could eat maybe a chicken, rice, and a glass of water. They could have that every single day, probably for the rest of their life, and survive for a very long time, right? Or maybe even something plant-based. But humans don't want that. They want to change. They want a new mechanism. They want to introduce a new experience whenever they eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, right? So people like to see that kind of change when it comes to solving problems. Think of bubble baths and bath bombs, right? They do virtually the same thing, but the mechanism and the experience completely changes, right? A bath bomb, it kind of explodes, right? Whereas one just bubbles up. So we look for a new experience, right? And we can go back to the iPod, iPod CD player, big new experience there, digital. And the last thing, which is really one of the most important things, is what are we replacing in the marketplace, right? Like what is currently in the marketplace that we can do not only better, but completely get rid of it, because human beings at a primal level don't like to just improve, they like to replace. Improvement offers will usually not do as well as replacement offers. It's kind of when people go to get a new car, they don't really need a new car most of the time. They instead of just improving it or getting new tires or maybe tinting the windows, no, I'm tired of it, I want to get a new one. So we always look for awesome. the bigger the gap there, the bigger of an indication that we have a really solid product. So that's how that's literally like the foundation for how we look at what products we're going to choose and what products we're going to market. There's a lot more stuff, but I think for your listeners, for like 4 things: opportunity, desire, experience, and replacement. Those 4 components are like literally the backbone of our business.
And, for all of you private label sellers out there who are trying to do product research, you should use that as your guideline, right? Totally. You should think about, when you're thinking about that product that you're thinking about bringing to market, you should really think about, okay, does it have a strong USP? Is there a desire in the marketplace for it? What is the experience compared to what I call reasonable alternatives? So what I call these reasonable alternatives, whenever I'm working with inventors and they're looking at this new cool idea, I'm like, okay, but how many reasonable alternatives are there in the marketplace? And are they significantly cheaper? Like, how does yours bring that additional value, right? And then the replacement, what are you replacing? I love that way of thinking about it. Instead of just reasonable alternatives, like why would they choose yours, right? And not this other?
Yes.
I love that. That's such a great way to break down 4 things. Yeah.
I can also tell you that like that formula, I kid you not, I've used it in every product that I've launched. And it's not always a rocket to the moon, but even on the days where I hit the ignition button and the rocket doesn't jump up as high as, or shoot off as high as I want it to, it has always proven itself to be a very solid baseline model for how I'm going to market products as well. So, everything can always be optimized. That's what we do in e-commerce most of the time, right? But that formula right there is, like I said, it's the foundation of everything we've built our product selection on. So it works.
Love that. So let's talk about a real brand. So what makes a real brand in your eyes versus just like an Amazon only product?
Oh, great question. So I would say, I actually had a conversation with a pretty big client of ours, and he said something that was really cool. And it kind of, we just had a conversation. It's directly in response to what you're saying, because he sold on Amazon first, right? And he said that his product was driving his product was driving the brand, right? Like his sales entirely were driving the brand. Like if he stopped marketing or stopped spending on ads, his business wouldn't really perform how it was performing. To him, the message is what drives, is when you drive a brand, right? Like when your message and what your mission statement, what your purpose, when you're a purpose-driven company, that message is actually what drives the brand. The sales support it, right? But the driving force becomes the vision. It usually takes, especially when we're doing a lot of PPC, a lot of customer acquisition, when you're doing it like that, as opposed to like a boots to ground organic, that's the benefit of the boots to ground organic method. You're going to get more of a personalized touch when it comes to acquiring customers, speaking to people, building that mission from kind of inception. But most of us in e-commerce aren't really building like that. Most of us are acquiring. So what happens is when you stop acquiring, what happens, right? Like, do your sales fall off, right? And I mean, that goes back into retention and great products, right? So I would say that really getting it so that people become advocates. They want to become advocates for your business. It's not just about the product. The product doesn't drive the brand. The mission drives the brand, you know? And I have a saying is attention gets the sale, product gets the scale. So like you can capture people's attention these days. Like it's not super easy to sell things online, but it's a lot easier than it was 20 years ago, right? We know where people are in the funnel. We know where they are in terms of engagement. We know everything about people when it comes to media buying. So at this point, it kind of looks like, you know, you can get sales, but that doesn't mean you're going to grow a scalable business. You have to have a great product, and that product usually translates into some sort of mission that people then use to drive the business. So they kind of transfer from one to the next, right?
I like to think of it as whether your reviews come naturally. You know,
Listen,
Amazon sellers are always trying to get more reviews. They're always like, how do I get more reviews? Well, you're selling a light bulb. And I'm sorry, but you're not going to get more reviews. But if you really do, if you connect with the mission, if you of your brand to the feeling that customer gets when they buy your product, and you're replacing all the things that we talked about that make up a brand, you're really helping them with something in their life, and you're making a difference in their life. They are just naturally going to leave a review without you even asking. Like, we get new 5-star reviews for our for my invented product all the time, because it just saves people so much time and money, and they're just like, oh, I have to leave a review. This is the best thing ever, you know? So it's just really, you know, it's easy if you have one of those products. And I think that is every major brand that we ever think about that we know, like, and trust brought one of those products to market that really made a difference in our life.
Yeah.
And
a good thing about another thing that you touched on, and it's really important, is just, you know, the product, like the experience, right? What happens is when people trust products, they then trust the manufacturer and the supplier and the producer of the product, right? So when your mission is authentic and your product is good, what happens is it makes your mission and your goal with the business much more authentic to your consumers, right? Because you're now relatable, you're trustworthy, you're actually selling a good product, you deliver the product on time, you have a great experience, there's great packaging. These are all the things that, like, you know, that I don't think are talked about enough when it comes to Shopify, and not even just Shopify, but like utilizing outside traffic platforms, like even social media advertising, right? You can sell on Facebook and you can do Facebook ads. What a lot of people don't realize that you can also engage with people who ask questions immediately, right? Like somebody can ask you, oh, well, how many calories are in this product? And you can literally, this is a perfect opportunity for you to have an immediate piece of engagement with your customer at the advertising level. Like, no media in history has ever really had that power, right? Like, when you think that's something that nobody talks about. Like, when we get customer service, we literally have somebody who is literally designated for Facebook comments to be extremely thorough. It doesn't just say, oh, how many calories? 158. It's, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. Great to hear from you. There's 158 calories in this product. Do you have any additional questions? Like, create an experience. When you do stuff like that from like inception on the acquisition side, using paid media, like, if you carry that all the way through, good messaging on your email, people are just naturally going to like your product. Like, why wouldn't they if it's a great product? So that's really where the brand is the differentiator, like the communication with your customer, the, like, you know, we're all I'm in e-commerce world, so I look at data all day, right? But at the end of that piece of data is a real human being that at a primal level always wants a positive relationship. Human beings want positive relationships in their life. So even though we're brands and we're products and we sell as such, we still have the capacity to develop very, very strong relationships with brands. And after COVID especially, that's mostly what's driving businesses right now. That's separating, like, e-commerce products and e-commerce brands, you know?
I love that. That's just so strong. So, you know, let's get into what it takes to grow a brand on Shopify, because I know so many Amazon sellers will reach out to me and they'll say, you know, Amy, I want to get a Shopify store up and running, and I don't know what I should do. Can you tell me, Caulen, when I talked to you last time, you told me about you basically like every angle, like you have thought of every angle of growing a brand. Like you create multiple funnels, you do split testing, you have like follow-up email sequences for every one of your funnels that's personalized to that landing page. Like you have created like a machine. You have created a system for growing a brand on and off of Shopify, really, but really helping people grow their following and everything. Like, and of course, Shopify is just the method that you use to do that. And you do other things off of Shopify, but let's talk a little bit about your process and how you go through the process of growing a brand on Shopify and some of the marketing funnels and copywriting that's involved.
Yeah. Oh, great. So yeah, our process basically, we start with we have a strategy session, right, that we go with, and we go really, really deep on who our customer is, right? We're learning about basically everything and anything that basically resonates with our customer in terms of now, I don't want to say what their values are, right? But we're trying to take them from an imperfect present to a desirable future, right? And we want to understand the pain points that they're going through. We want to understand kind of the problems that they're experiencing. How do we make these problems, better and solve them? We solve very specific problems, and we just go into an in-depth research process where we learn everything and anything that we can about our customers. A lot of it revolves around review research. So we do review research where we'll look at one-star reviews, 3-star reviews, and 5-star reviews. Typically, a cool tip for your listeners is one of the things that we do on each of those reviews is we copy and paste as many of the reviews as we can, and we use what's called a word cloud generator. So we can look at the 1-star reviews, we'll copy as many, we'll get, say a brand has 3,000 reviews, we'll get as many of those reviews as we can, we'll put them in a word cloud generator, and the word cloud will literally pick the most popular words. So you'll know with unbiased, like it's just data, right? There's no subjectiveness to it, right? It'll show us all the key words that are in a 1-star review. Like what are the number one things that people are complaining about? It'll extract the most common words. 3 stars, we do the same thing, and 5 stars, we do the same thing. And that what's cool about that is you get like the really, really bad, right? This was the worst product that I've ever had in my life reviews. You get the 5s, which is this is the best product I've ever had in my entire life, and it's a light bulb, so it's probably a little exaggerated, right? But you also get the 3 stars, which is I liked it, but, and that's where the gold is, because now like, because with 1 stars you're going to get a lot of product damage stuff. They sent me the wrong item, they sent me the wrong flavor. 5 stars sometimes are a little exaggerated. 3 stars are like where we get the sweet spot, because it's the most objective and neutral opinion you can get from somebody. Somebody is taking the time to say, you know what, it wasn't that great, but it wasn't that bad. So what made it in between, and where can we use that to exist on this side of the spectrum, on the 5-star side. So anyway, that's just a little tip that we use, because it works really well for learning, where your product is, and where
I'm so gonna cut that tip out of this episode.
Send it to me.
It's so good. That's a great tip. I love word clouds, and I've never thought about using them in that way. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Keep spilling the gold. We're listening.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, so we'll look at a lot of that stuff. And I always say at the end of the day, it all boils down to research. And that's just the copywriter in me. Like, we research so much, we look up news articles, like I said, the reviews. Audience insights, unfortunately, is supposed to be disappearing. So I didn't want to talk about it too much from Facebook, but Facebook audience insights, it's still up and running now. But it's such a powerful tool. But I believe July 1st, it's supposed to be going away. I don't know what they're going to be replacing it with, but I know there's been some notices on that. So anyway, research is number one. And then you kind of start going and you build infrastructure around that. When we talk about infrastructure, I typically like to do one of 2 things. It depends on the client, and it depends on where people are at in their business. Some people will have a Shopify store that has some basic, it's got like a homepage, and it's very, very basic, right? What you could do is, if you wanted to test to see if Shopify would be a good option for your product, to sell it. What I would probably do is leave the site the way it is without having to build too much, and build what we would call an acquisition page, right? Or a landing page. And what that landing page does is you basically put your product on there and you write copy. Think of it like a funnel, right? I use that term very carefully because, I love ClickFunnels, but there's just a little difference, between
almost like an Amazon product listing page,
yeah,
right? Where it's
yes.
just that product on the page, and we're
Yes.
trying to take them through the journey of that product and take them all the way through to the point of purchase, right?
Exactly. And, one of the most important things, just for everybody listening, one of the most important things on that page, besides the copywriting and, the creative and all the other stuff that goes along with it, is the offer. The offer is super, super important. Most of the time when people think about offers, like if you tell somebody, oh, your offer isn't that great. Or if I tell somebody their offer isn't that great on the page, so a lot of people immediately think that I'm telling them to lower the price. But really what developing offers is about, it's not really about price. It's actually more about value. So people very rarely don't buy because of price. It's because they didn't see the value in the price that you were presenting to them, right? So what we're trained to do, and what we do during our offer development process, is we look at what you have in your business, or what we can find, source, or be creative with, the ebooks or whatnot, that we can give to your consumers when they purchase this your product through an acquisition offer, right? So I'll give you a great example. One of our clients, they sell organic supplements, right? They're a pretty large seller of organic supplements on Amazon. They were having a lot of trouble with their website in general, but we wanted to test to make sure that it was, we could get something going before we went and built out all this expensive infrastructure, right? So we built them a landing page. And then in the offer development, what we did was we got them I helped them source this electric tornado bottle overseas. And it's like a shaker, but instead of it being a shaker, it's got like a plastic spinner in there, and you press a button and it turns on, and it blends for you. And we got a bunch of really cool creative in there. It was very, very cheap to source, and we bundled it with the product, and we gave it to people for free. And we were able to charge right around the same price for the product without having to discount it too much, because we created more value, right? So we factored that into the price. And that's one of the things you can do on the acquisition side, to start bringing people into your brand, right? And then sell them things on the back end, right? Is usually with the good product, good experience. So I would usually recommend, obviously, first thing is research. Next thing is probably a single product landing page. I don't know it depends how many SKUs you have. I think it goes on a case-by-case basis for purposes of this podcast. I don't want to be too generic because every case is different, but in a lot of cases, what we do is we test a single product landing page, and then we run traffic to those pages. One of the things that people don't get told enough, as another tip for your listeners, because there's no shortage of media buying companies out there that want your business, right? There's plenty of Facebook buyers out there, and Google ad buyers and all that good stuff. But what a lot of them, I don't want to say what a lot of them won't tell you, because that just sounds like they're being shady, but it's not. But I think a common misconception is that people think that they have a page or a piece of infrastructure that's even ready to have traffic sent to it, right? Just because you have a website on Shopify does not mean that the traffic should be sent there, right? Because it's probably not going to convert. This 2% number that everybody thinks just magically exists, that's if you have pretty solid infrastructure, pretty decent copywriting, you'll probably convert at 2%. If you don't have the right basic tools, you won't even convert even half that, I don't think. So it's about making sure that you have the right components, copywriting that works, an email marketing, some sort of email marketing flow or campaign that's going out to your customers, but landing page, right, with the right components, and then you go to market with traffic, right? And then traffic is sent to the page via Facebook, Instagram, or still, even though there's a lot going on with Facebook right now with iOS 14. I don't know if I know your listeners are obviously probably a lot more on the Amazon side. So iOS 14, there's a lot of things going on right now, just with Facebook being able to track things and attribution and all that other, good stuff that Facebook uses. But it's still a powerful channel. And we use traffic from that source or other external sources to then convert people and then start bringing them into the brands that we work with.
And I think the key too that you build out is you also think about how do we communicate with that customer after they make a purchase or after
Yes.
they visited the page. And I think
Yes.
so many people don't really think all the way through the funnel, right? They're
Right.
creating that
Totally.
Facebook ad and they're like, okay, I got traffic. How many conversions am I getting? And
Yes.
they're just waiting for that conversion to happen. And they haven't built anything other than just you sign up for my email list, right?
Yes. Totally.
But you're building ahead of time. You're thinking all the way through that funnel and you're building out that follow-up sequence
Yes.
that specifically
To that landing
helps.
page.
And you gave me an example of the upsells and the follow-ups that were being done on your email follow-ups, and you were saying that you also want to look at your upsells and your add-ons and really target them to the customer. I think you gave me an example of somebody was selling a really expensive item and they were giving away like a $1 journal or something.
Yes, 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 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. So what I was saying is when you're purchasing, like when you're building a landing page, right? When you're building, let's say, an acquisition page, like we just talked about, you want to have, we use those as entry points for segmentation, right? We know that people who entered through this landing page probably ascribe to this kind of message, and they probably follow this audience, right? So what we do is we make sure that the offers and the post-purchase offers, the messaging, everything we develop for that customer is catered to that customer. Our offers on the back end, if somebody, let's say you're selling a supplement, right? If you sold if you sold somebody maybe a higher quality, higher price protein powder, you probably don't want to go and have a shaker bottle at as your main upsell 7 days down the road. You don't want to have a generic post-purchase process. You want to make sure that everybody is kind of getting their own respective message, right? So that it resonates with them. Because when you try and sell to everybody, you sell to nobody. So
Right.
it's really about making sure that, and this is like it's just really about being considerate. I think about when you think about somebody coming into your actual store, right? Imagine somebody, you own a storefront and you have somebody that comes in and they buy something and then they make this purchase and then you take them to some other completely area of the store and try and sell them stuff over there that has nothing to do with what they just purchased, right? Like somebody comes to buy floral stuff from Home Depot and you go take them to the saws and hammers, right? It doesn't make sense, right? We don't think of it like that because we're in the digital space sometimes, but it's really that simplistic when you think about it. Like, sell people what they want to be sold, not what you want to sell them, right? And that's a big thing that, like, a lot of people, like, it's not what you want to sell, it's what people want to buy. And
and I loved how you did, you took, and this is a great idea for all of you listeners out there, you took a single supplement.
Yep.
And you presented it with 3 or 4 different landing pages, same supplement, but this one was for hiking.
Yep.
And it was like the hiking supplement. You were really speaking to the hiker, right? And then this one over here was for like the hardcore bodybuilder, right?
100%.
And so you're not going to try and sell the hardcore bodybuilder accessories to the hiker.
Nope.
Who's more interested in endurance and everything like that. So I love, and any one of us could practice that with any of our products. We could create multiple landing pages with different messages that are targeted towards different types of customers and customers who are on different journeys in their lives, right? And we could look at all the pain points that our customers have and have a landing page for each pain point, right? And then and then your follow-up messages also continue to target that same customer. So you not only built multiple landing pages, but you also built multiple follow-up sequences that were personalized for that customer. So I just think that is just so smart. And then by the time you're done, what you've done is you've basically built out this whole infrastructure of where, they can plug in their next products and they kind of know the process for that. So that's just awesome. I love that you do that. And I think that it's a great tip for all of our listeners to sell your product to multiple different customers, but make sure that you're targeting them separately and not trying to, hey, if you're a hiker, a biker, or a hardcore weightlifter, like this is for everyone.
Yeah, and that was one thing I didn't mention. I don't think I touched on enough in the research process is, learn who your customer is. Go into forums, go into, anywhere where your customers are discussing things, Facebook groups. Like, just go in there. You don't have to, you're not there to spam anybody. You're just there to read and just consume. Amy, I think I told you I spend more time at Amazon events than I do Shopify events because I'm trying to learn my customer. I'm trying to learn, like, what are the pain points that they have? What are the challenges? That's how I've learned all the things that I can go back and forth with you on, and what I'm hearing, because I'm hearing it from actual sellers. That's one thing, is just really go deep on learning who your customer is and how to speak to them. We have a section in our discovery sheet. It's called vernacular. Like, what are words that they use that these people specifically use? Because if you don't speak like them, you can't sell to them. So that was just one thing to use. And then one last tip that we use on landing pages, because this is really good in relation to what you said about how things, how messaging changes, right? Think of it like this: when we sell a product, right, we don't we don't want to just compare things for the purpose of comparison. So I'm talking about comparison charts, right? So with comparison charts, most people think that you're comparing features and benefits, right? You're just comparing the two. But what we found, comparison charts are actually very powerful for product and market positioning. So what I mean by that is, let's say, I have my protein brand, right? So let's say I want to position my product and my messaging when I'm messaging to somebody, whoever that audience is. If I have a comparison chart and I want to message somebody who does like plant-based protein, like Vega, Sun Warrior, all these great brands, that we compete against, right? Then that's what. But what if I want to brand my product as a breakfast product, right? Well, like, what if I have a landing page with a breakfast product? Now I'm not comparing to them. Now I'm comparing to Ensure, Our Nation, Slim Fast. Right now, I've now subliminally, but also explicitly place my product in a specific place where my customer can understand what it is, right? So when you build, use comparison charts, because they don't just set out features and benefits, and you can use those features and benefits, but use them in relation to what the market is talking about in that segment. If you're going to compare a latte product to another latte, compare it to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and if you're doing a healthier product, something like that. Just that I know that it makes a huge difference on our pages, is comparison charts. So that would be one last tip.
I love that. And I mean, that ties back into that replacement, right? Like, what are you replacing?
What are you replacing? Yeah, it makes it explicit.
Love it.
Explicit.
So let's get back to basics. I mean, you do such an amazing job building out Shopify's. You're building out monster sites and really helping people through every area of the funnel. What you're doing is very, very on a very professional level. Yeah, so let's get back to basics for those brands that are just starting out and considering Shopify.
Sure.
What do you think about Shopify in terms of, like, when should I have more than just a placeholder page for my brand? Like, when do I start throwing some eggs into the Shopify basket?
Great question. So I think that really is, I think it's kind of universal when it comes, the answer to that is kind of universal when it comes to a lot of the sales channels that we work with, right? So I always tell people, if you're selling, let's say you get a guy like me, before I got involved in the Amazon to Shopify space, I was selling on Shopify, right? I'm selling on Shopify, and I'm running traffic from Facebook, and Facebook is doing okay. It's not doing stellar. It's kind of, but I haven't given up on it yet, right? I probably don't want to go and take capital from there and allocate it to another traffic source to then do another mediocre job with another traffic source. I want to master this source first, right? Like, my Facebook acquisition is doing very well. My CPAs are healthy. My traffic isn't super expensive, which is hard in these days with Facebook, but nonetheless, it's converting at a very efficient level. I can sustain this, right? When I hit that level, that's when I'm willing to pivot, in traffic sources. If I want to go and run traffic from YouTube and Google, you better believe that my Facebook and Instagram traffic is I'm either using it or I'm not using it. Sorry, my phone went off. I'm either using it or I'm not using it, right? So if I'm using Facebook, I'm going all in. If I'm not using, then I'll go somewhere else. So it's kind of up to an Amazon seller when it comes to that. Have you really gotten to where you feel like you have a good grasp on customer acquisition? How much are people purchasing your product? What are your sales monthly? Do you feel that you're doing, I guess we never all have it figured out, right? Like if we all had it figured out, we probably wouldn't be listening to podcasts, right? So we're always trying to learn, but I do feel like there's a certain point where we understand like, hey, okay, I'm ready to make this transition. I'm ready to go horizontal into another traffic source and allocate revenue there, because that is another thing. In order to get data, you have to spend money, and you're going to need data. Go ahead. Yeah. Go.
And that's the same thing that I tell people about just moving to other channels or expanding internationally on Amazon. It's like, okay, well, do you have where your primary sales channels are right now? Do you have that figured out? Like, are you understanding how much money you're making, what your turnover is, how to stay in stock, your logistics, like all of those things? Like, it's good to have a good system built for that before all of a sudden, because every new channel you move into, and Shopify is no different, especially when you want to sell on your own website, you are driving the traffic now. Right. And so you got to go bring traffic to your page. So before you, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing, nor is Amazon, nor is Walmart, nor any of the channels. So we really do have to take the time to kind of get to know our channels and make sure that we're profitable, we're scalable. And then when we know we're profitable and we're scalable, we go, okay, well, let's look at Shopify, or let's look at adding Walmart, or let's look at adding an international Amazon, channel. Whatever it is, like focus on the one thing at a time. And back to your comparison chart, Marsha has a question. She said, what if there are very few comparable products? So what if it's a new, never seen before product, or there's very few comparable products? Do you have a tip there?
So let me ask you, so do you have anything that you're replacing currently? Like, is there a product that we're replacing?
Yes, I believe so. With her product, there are, because she is replacing the need for things like hand sanitizer and stuff like that.
So I would probably put, like, whatever I can replace, I would probably, like you and I, you called it out right away. Like, usually what you're replacing or what you're improving upon is going to be in that comparison chart. So if you're going to, even though it might not be hand sanitizer, right? You might not even be selling hand sanitizer. That's okay, because you're just giving it in, you're putting it in a position for the consumer to understand, okay, I don't need hand sanitizer anymore because I have this product, and here's why it's better, right? The better is like the bonus. The better is the actual comparison part of the comparison chart is the cherry on top. What it really does, it shows the consumer what they're replacing, and then it tells them why they're replacing it.
And when I think about Marsha's product, I think not only does it replace the need for things like hand sanitizer, it also replaced the need for a lot of health supplements that you might be taking to constantly stay healthy, because, so you can say, like, look at all these things you can throw. You think of that old As Seen on TV commercials, like, throw that in the trash, throw that in the trash.
There's a little bit of, I always say there's a little bit of As Seen on TV in, like, Facebook advertising, and, like, using special acquisition offers, but wait, there's more kind of deal with upsells. You just got to make it kind of classy, right? You got to make it, it's got to be tasteful. It can't be like too salesy, or else you get really deep into like the, kind of like pushy salesman tactic.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk about comparison sales now, as far as websites, web platforms go. Tell me about, what do you like about Shopify versus other e-commerce platforms like WooCommerce, for example?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I first started getting into e-commerce, I was building on WooCommerce and WordPress. So I wasn't building, but I was hiring people to build on. So I'm pretty familiar with the platform, and I don't have anything against it, right? Like, I think it's a good platform. We build, some of the business owners that we work with, they do have a WooCommerce site and they want to stay there. So it has its advantages. One of the things that I really like about Shopify is just the ease of use. It's got apps, it does, some of these apps, they can get a little, just being a fair comparison, they can get a little costly. They add up after you have 10 different apps that you're using, but just the fact that it's so easy to use, it syncs everything, just links right up to it.
I love how the dashboard is just so seamless.
Dashboard is great.
You can like look at your Facebook ads and your conversions and everything from your Shopify dashboard, which I was like, wow. We did a Shopify course in our mastermind group, and it really made me want to switch from
Yeah.
WooCommerce to Shopify, because I was like,
Yeah.
but then you've got the nickel and diming, right? Where it's like, oh, one more app. Oh, now our monthly
Yes,
costs
totally.
are up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, you're spending a couple. You can spend, couple. It's not hard to get to a couple thousand. I mean, it's not. You have to be doing volume at that point. I wouldn't think that a smaller store is doing a couple $1,000 in fees, but a couple $100 is not unreasonable if you've got a couple of pretty decent apps that are really important.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I love that
but
comparison though.
yeah, it's just an easier platform in my opinion. Like you said, the metrics you can plug in. There's a lot of really good apps that work with like lifetime value. There's a company called Lifetimely. I'm gonna give them some free promo here, but it's a great app. Gives you lots of LTV information about your customer. We use it on all of our projects, dashboards, data source. There's a lot of cool things you can do on Shopify. It's cooler.
Yes, it's better for the
Just cooler,
nerds.
I
I
guess.
like it.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Well, Colin, I would love to talk a little bit more about, because the last time I talked to you, we were talking about what you do for brands. So your
Yeah.
company takes on certain brands and you basically grow out their Shopify channel for
Sure.
them.
Yep.
And it's not like I wouldn't say it's not like you're not like building someone's first Shopify site. People are not coming to you to build their first Shopify site. What you're doing is taking brands that are true private labels. They have a differentiated product. They have those 4 aspects that we talked about, and that you can really build great funnels for, and you're building them an asset. You are doing the job for them and you're building them an asset. So talk about what kinds of brands that you work with, because I'm sure there are a lot of brands in our listener group that are thinking like, wow, I would love somebody to take over my Shopify and just manage it for me and grow it for me. But talk a little bit about the type of brands that you work with and what you guys do for them.
Totally. Yeah. So, well, the first thing that we always do is whenever we, bring on a new brand, the first thing we do is we meet with the founder or the CEO, whoever's in charge there. And we look at the product. We look at the product together. They'll send it to me, and I usually, if it's a smaller product, I usually just ask that it gets sent to me so I can try and use it. If it's something that I can use, if it's a house product or a food product or something, I always like to touch, feel, see, and get an experience for what the product looks like. So we typically work with consumer packaged goods, lots of CPGs. We're very familiar with supplements. We have quite a few clients in the supplement space. I also really like to work with problem solving products, like direct to consumer problem solving, something that solves big problems and desirable problems, people that definitely need these problems solved. That's something that we want to look for. More or less when we're looking at businesses, we're also taking into account not just new opportunities that exist on the product side, but what also can exist as a product or an industry authority side, right? Because there's sometimes where you'll find products that maybe aren't as unique, right? Like maybe you don't have something that's super, super unique, but what you do have is the opportunity of an opening in the market where there's no D2C authority. Because there's a difference between a standard and an authority, right? Like you can have a company that sells a specific product and maybe people just use it because that's all there is there. But if there's no direct to consumer authority in the space, you actually have a new opportunity for the market, which is to claim that you are the authority and we are the go-to source. Because I'll do product research when somebody gives me a product. I'll see where it's being sold, right? Is it only being sold through online distribution and online marketplaces? If it's only being sold on online, like people think that that's a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing because that tells me there's nobody directly connecting with the customer. Like there's nobody who's directly saying like, this is a great opportunity for you to deal with the authority in the space. And we're going to be here for you when you need help because you're going to need help. You can't go to Home Depot and, get everything that you can get directly from a brand. You can't get that closeness. So we look for that opportunity as well. Is there an opportunity to be an authority in the space? Is there anybody competing with you in the D2C space? So that's another thing that we look at. And then, obviously we look at when it comes to just the brands that we work with and the relationships we like to build, because I think that's something that a lot of people, I don't want to say it's a challenge, but in e-commerce, there's definitely no shortage of like horror stories that people have heard, right? Like we've all heard them all, right? Like I worked with somebody and then they just like ran Facebook ads for me and they ran them into the ground. Like we've all heard it, right? So the number one thing that I always tell people when we work together is that we want you to understand that this is going to be you're investing in infrastructure first. So I always like to analogize it to a restaurant, right? If you wanted to open up a restaurant, right, after owning, maybe a nice profitable food truck, and you want to go and build a restaurant, right, you're going to have to pay for the restaurant, you're going to have to pay for the waiters, you're going to have to pay for the management, you're going to have to pay for all that, and then you're going to have to pay to market the business, right? So it has to be somebody who understands that this is not like, because we don't want people to think that this is a get rich quick, like that's not really how it works. This is somebody really wanting to invest in infrastructure, take their brand to the next level and say, I want to build an asset for my business because eventually I'd like to, go past, maybe they don't want to just do the aggregator thing with Amazon, right? They want to go and get acquired by a major brand. So, that becomes an asset because now you're collecting data. We like to work with people who understand like, hey, we're not saying you're not going to get results. We literally guarantee sales, but it's not at first. We're getting data, we're getting your assets built, and we're putting together the infrastructure you need to actually sell. So I think psychologically, one of the things we look for is just that preparedness to say, hey, I'm ready to go from point A to point B, and I'm willing to build this. So good product, potential for being an authority in the space, and the mindset that you're going to be investing in building an asset, not just building, a piece of real estate on a marketplace,
Right, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm down to my last two questions.
Nice,
So,
nice.
from a business perspective and even a personal growth perspective, what are some things that you're reading, listening to, that kind of thing that keep you motivated?
Cool. So I'm reading a book. I'm actually reading, and I don't want to sound like I'm like, I'm reading 3 books, but I'm not like, I don't always do that. It's just like that just happened recently that I got 3 books sent to me at the same time. So I'm reading this book called Influenced, which is just a really amazing book about B2B. Being a D2C, I've been selling D2C and selling direct to consumer, and then with the agency space, you get a little bit more involved in B2B, and it's just a great book about value, providing value, and how you can use value as a true asset in business. And that's, to me, is like, that's like my number one goal is to provide value to people before anything. So Influence, my business partner actually just gave me a book the other day called The Obstacle is the Way, which I'm reading currently. It's pretty decent. And other than that, just constantly trying to push myself. Like I really am. Like I'm constantly trying to push to see what the next level looks like, and see where I can get better, especially in like, obviously as a parent, I have kids and stuff, but, professionally, I really like to push the threshold, like how much better can I get, and how much more can I learn? I'm always reading. I mean, we have something at the agency, ABL, Always Be Learning, and we're literally like obsessed with learning. So that's kind of how I keep busy. And obviously, personal life, kids and gym
and coming to see us at Prosper. So
oh
we're
yeah,
gonna see you there.
Prosper's
I'm so excited to see you
great.
again. I saw you in Miami, so it's good.
I know.
We'll be seeing you at Prosper and maybe a day of the Empowering Women's Conference. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, the last thing is, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, great. So yeah, very easy. Of course, my dog starts barking right when I go to tell people how they can get in touch with me. How funny is that? That's my life. Very easy. You can, actually the easiest way is through LinkedIn, because I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can look me up. You can spell my name Caulen. I'm probably the only person on LinkedIn that I know of that probably has their name spelled like me. So that's one option. If you'd like to email me, my email is Caulen, Caulen @brainpower.agency. I think those are the 2 best ways to get in touch with me.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Caulen, for just dropping so many nuggets today.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of folks here in our Zoom chat. And so we're going to stop the recording and we're going to let our folks that are in our Zoom chat ask any questions that they have.
For sure.
And we're going to stop the live as well. But we just want to remind you guys, first of all, thank you for listening. And I hear from so many of you, and just love that you listen to us and that you get value out of what we bring. It's one of my favorite things to do all week is to record this podcast because I get to learn from amazing people like Caulen. So, just please rate, review, subscribe, go to sellerroundtable.com and hit that subscribe button so that you get notified of all of our new episodes. And we just appreciate you all so much. And we will see you next time on the Seller Roundtable. Goodbye, everyone.